I'm Vicki George. Late breaking news from WLKY. Jeffersontown Police is having a news conference on the deadly shooting at Kroger. 2 people were shot and killed. A suspect is in custody. The people shot are Maurice Stalliard and Vicki Lee Jones. Let's go now live to J-Town, where police will be conducting a news conference for us with more details.
And the grandson that was with his grandfather that night, that afternoon. He was there and cannot unsee what he has seen. And the employees and those residents of our community that were shopping in Kroger at that time, let's keep them in their prayers, because they also have an effect from this evening at Kroger. J-Town is a city in mourning today. We are following a census act, but yet we are a community of all. We are a community not that one person will define us. We are a community that all of us as a community are a family. We want to thank the Jeffersontown Police Department for their timely event to get there. They were there within minutes. They captured the person on Taylorsville Road and Hurstburn Lane right off of the incident. It could have been worse, but because of the professionalism of our police department, the fire department, and LMPD, the situation was resolved very quickly. But I'd also like to thank the community that stepped up and pointed the police in the direction and did not just step back and try to film to show later. They helped point the police to where they need to go and resolve the situation at hand by getting involved. J-Town is a community of residents that believe in our city. J-Town is a community that we are proud of at this point in time. We will start tomorrow a new day. We will start tomorrow as Jeffersontown. We are not sitting here pointing fingers at any one person. It is not time for that. It is time for us to take the hand that we point with and shake the person's hand next to us. We take those 5 fingers and we thank the person for being our neighbor. I don't care who they are, what they represent, where they come from. They are our neighbor. They are part of our family. This is the way J-Town is on a daily basis. We are ones that step back, look at a situation, and realize that as a community, as a state, as a nation, we can get through this. Every day there seems to be a situation that unravels in our country. We, as a community, need to step back, reach that hand out to that neighbor, and start talking to the ones that we love and we cherish. Today is a new day. Today, Jeffersontown is healing, but we're healing as a community, not as an individual. We, again, will not let one individual define us in our community. This individual is a person that did a senseless act. We admit that. This community joined forces together with our police department, and that is where we stand today. Thank you all for showing up. I am going to let our chief, Sam Rogers, tell you of the actual incident that occurred, and then we'll have questions after that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Durf. Just real quick, I want to thank representatives from our city government, our city council members, and staff from City Hall for being here to support us as the Jeffersontown Police Department. We strive to be and deliver the best policing of any police force in this state and in this nation, and it's our honor to serve this community. Our press release that we've already sent out to you all detailed a lot of the information that we had at the initial stages of the investigation. I'll reference the timely nature that Mayor Durf had pointed out in his opening remarks. The calls began to come into our department at 2:54 p.m. That was the time that we received the initial 911 call. At 2:54, simultaneously while those calls were coming in, that's when our first officers were dispatched. They were being dispatched simultaneously while the 911 calls were coming into our radio room. At 2:56, 2 minutes later, our first officers began to arrive on scene. And at 2:58, we had the suspect in custody. So within 4 minutes from start to finish, we had the shooter of this incident in our custody, and we began to, at that point, address the needs of the scene there at the Kroger store at 9080 Taylorsville Road. A multitude of various reports were received, obviously, in a short amount of time. Our radio room was inundated with calls via 911 lines, also via administrative telephone lines, via cell phone calls to individual officers. These reports were referencing locations of victims, number of shooters, possible locations of the shooters, the possible locations of where those shooters were fleeing to. So there was a lot of telephone traffic coming into the police department at that time, as well as a lot of radio traffic ongoing as the officers responded. Multiple agencies, in addition to the Jeffersontown Police, responded to assist us, including the Louisville Metro Police Department, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, Jeffersontown Fire and EMS, Louisville Metro EMS, and our federal partners with the ATF and the FBI. Once on scene, officers engaged in multiple activities simultaneously. First and foremost, as officers arrived, as I stated earlier, within 4 minutes from the start of the incident, initial officers that arrived on the scene had located and detained and taken the suspect into custody. Also, there was another shooter on scene, which I will describe his involvement here shortly. But we also located him and took him into custody at that point until we could determine his identity and his involvement in the incident down there. Also, while that was going on, we began to conduct a rapid evaluation and search of a nearly 116,000 square foot building for any potential victims that had yet to be identified, as well as witnesses and people that were in hiding that may have not been located or found a protective place to seek shelter at that point. We also had a massive undertaking of cordoning off ingress and egress to the building itself. As again, I stated, the Kroger building is a 116,000 square foot building with multiple entrances and exits for both the public and the employees. At the same time, we also had to secure the parking lot from people gaining access to that area because, again, as I'll describe here in a minute, the incident ended up out in the parking lot where a gunfight ensued. And therefore, due to that, we had a multitude of shell casings and vehicles involved in the shootout out there that we were going to ultimately have to process and take into consideration. Once the scene was secured, the suspect was in custody, we had a daunting task of identifying and interviewing a multitude of witnesses. In all, at the time that we were down there with our initial scene response, investigators interviewed over 120 witnesses. We tried to determine at that point, early on, number one, whether they were a valid witness or not. If they weren't, then we were tried to release them from the scene as quickly as possible so as to not inconvenience them. If they ended up having valuable information and ended up being a good witness for us, we asked them to remain back a little bit further, and then investigators conducted a more formal interview with them. With the assistance of Louisville Metro Police Department's crime scene unit, the expansive crime scene, both inside the store and outside of the store, had to be processed and evidence collected. This again was a very complex and complicated scene, and we extend our thanks again to Louisville Metro Police and their crime scene unit and all of their staff that assisted us that day on scene. Representatives from the Jefferson County Coroner's Office ultimately responded, where they continued their investigation of the deaths of the victims. The victims were ultimately transferred from the scene to the state medical examiner's office, where an autopsy was performed on each this morning. The medical examiner's office and the coroner's office have ruled that the cause of death for both victims, that's Miss Vicki Jones and Mr. Maurice Stollard, were fatal wounds sustained from multiple gunshot wounds to each. After the investigators had cleared the scene of the Kroger, investigators from the Jeffersontown Police Department, the Louisville Metro Police Department, the FBI's evidence recovery team served search warrants at the residence of the suspect that we had taken into custody. In the course of that search warrant service, computers were seized as well as cellular telephones, and the FBI's forensic people are in the process of evaluating that for probative value as we speak. Investigators continue to evaluate and examine all evidence that was collected and identified at the scene. We have, just as of a few hours ago, determined and established some of the suspects' movements and actions just prior to the shooting. We received a tip that the suspect was seen outside of a local church where he appeared to, on video, have been attempting to gain access into the church. Their video surveillance system caught that. He was unsuccessful in gaining access to the church, and I do not know the correlation with the timestamps of their video in comparison to those at the Kroger store, but it appears to only be approximately 10 or 15 minutes prior to when the shooting incident occurred at the Kroger store. The Jeffersontown Police is serving as lead investigating agency in this incident and will pursue all applicable criminal charges at the Commonwealth or the state level while simultaneously cooperating and assisting our partners at the FBI and other federal agencies in their investigations to determine if any federal crimes were violated. Thank you. That's the end of my statement.
Questions?
What church was that?
It's the First Baptist Church of Jeffersontown.
Any idea why he was going there?
No, sir, I can't speculate on that.
When you served the warrant at this suspect's home, the doors of his home on the ground, was there any concern for explosives inside?
I would defer that question to the Louisville Metro SWAT team. They are the ones that served that warrant along with the FBI's evidence recovery team. But I do know that actions were taken at the scene with primary consideration being given to officer safety.
Do you have any new insight as to motive?
I can't speculate on motive at this time, no, sir. I don't have any clue.
Have you followed up on that one eyewitness that said that the man made a comment about whites don't shoot whites? How does that fit into your investigation?
Well, we're pursuing all avenues of the investigation, no matter where that takes us or what it involves. All crimes are investigated to the fullest extent by us. We are aware of that statement and are looking at any factors that may come into play with.
So there's speculation that this was a hate crime. Who will make that decision or determination? You guys are the FBI.
Well, at this point, I'll defer the questions to the FBI, and I'll introduce ASAC Jeff Coburn from the FBI to address that.
Can you again address how you determined he was at First Baptist in J-Town, which is a predominantly black church?
Well, again, we received a tip actually from a city employee that he, based upon descriptions and pictures of the suspect that he had observed on the news in the media since the incident occurred yesterday, a city employee actually thought that he had witnessed that person being outside of the church just prior to the shooting incident.
We're hearing conflicting reports about how Miss Jones died. Some people are saying that she was shot and then a firefight ensued. Some people are saying that she might have been caught in the crossfire when that firefight ensued. Do you have any clarification on that?
Yeah, she died as a result of the suspect's actions only. She was not caught in the crossfire of the gunfight that ensued out in the parking lot.
Okay.
Could you elaborate on the citizen who was armed? Did that citizen engage the suspect inside the store or chase the suspect out to the parking lot? How did that play out?
No, sir. That everything that the bystander shooter came into play was outside in the parking lot, outside of the building.
That particular person was already outside and encountered the shooter?
That's correct.
Said he lived with his parents. Were they home when the warrant was served? Can you comment on that? And were they cooperative? And did they know about what had happened?
The suspect's parents were aware of the situation, and they were cooperating with investigators. I can't attest to the fact whether they were at the home at the time of the service or not.
Did you mention if there was surveillance video in Kroger, what you guys have been able to see on that or surrounding?
Kroger does have surveillance video. At this time, we're not going to be releasing that without conferring with their legal staff as well as the Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
Can you talk about what you saw on there?
Video of that incident does show the suspect arriving at the location, making entry into the building, and then encountering the first victim and his grandson, where shots were fired. Secondary to that, he did exit the building and where he encountered the second victim.
Is it thought that these victims were randomly chosen? Were there any words exchanged in that moment? I mean, it was just who he came upon first?
I don't have that knowledge as to whether anything verbal transpired, any kind of verbal contact transpired between the parties involved.
Were there any other shots fired inside the building other than the ones directed at the first victim?
No, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, you have surveillance video inside the store. You've interviewed 100+ witnesses. Moving forward, when the Commonwealth Attorney takes over this case, how confident are you that there will be justice for these two victims' families?
I feel based upon the evidence that we've collected at this point in time, I think that our investigators will be able to present a thorough and complete case to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and ultimately the grand jury for their review.
We saw video of what appeared to be the suspect's gun in the parking lot. Was that the case? And could you describe the weapon?
The weapon that was visible in the parking lot was not the suspect responsible for the fatalities of the victims. That was the bystanders, the citizen that was armed that encountered the suspect out in the parking lot. That was his weapon, and it's a handgun.
How many shots were fired?
I do not know that information.
Was the suspect visibly armed when he attempted to get into the church? Did the city employee notice that?
I can't reveal that. I don't know.
The man who exchanged fire, did someone call him to the scene, or was he just walking in? What made him have why did he have the wherewithal to pull his gun out?
But I believe, first and foremost, he was not called to the scene by anyone. I think it just was by happenstance that he happened to be there at the time. And based upon what we have seen on video, it appears that he just reacted to the threat that was in close proximity to him when the suspect shot.
What can you tell us about the suspect's history of mental illness?
I have no direct knowledge of that other than through our investigation there apparently is some mental illness history with the subject in question.
When you served the search warrant at his residence, what sort of special precautions did you take in terms of entering the building?
Again, I would defer that to Louisville Metro SWAT team. They're the ones that initiated and entered the home along with the FBI staff and our investigators. Yes.
Can you say at what proximity the suspect was to the second victim when she was shot, and if she was facing the victim or if she was trying to flee the scene at that time?
He was within arm's length of her, and she was facing away from him.
You have a team here as well, and you mentioned this specifically about the hard work that they do. I'm sure you have active shooter training, but to know that those skills were used in a real-life situation, can you talk about just the maybe resolve of your police officers in terms of the training that they do, and then again they had to put it to use yesterday unfortunately, but you arrived on scene within 4 minutes. Can you just speak about the hard work of your men and women that put on the uniform every day?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a correction, we arrived within 2 minutes of the dispatch, not 4. But yes, our officers are trained to the highest levels of any law enforcement agency within the country. We keep up to date on current standards and current recommendations by all tactical training associations. We pride ourselves on providing and giving opportunity for our personnel to attend the most advanced training. Our mayor and our city council provide us with funding to be properly equipped with the best equipment, the necessary equipment to do our jobs. Obviously, this is an unfortunate incident, and we feel a great deal of remorse and sorrow for the victims' families. Again, to echo what the mayor said earlier, we as police officers, just like civilians and citizens alike, we have the opportunity, unfortunately, to see videos of this nature, similar incidents that have transpired around the country. You know, we sit there and watch these videos thinking, you know, maybe we'll be so lucky that this will never happen in our community, and unfortunately this was visited upon us yesterday.
And what kind of weapon was the suspect carrying?
It was a handgun. I'm not familiar. I don't have the knowledge as to what kind of caliber it was.
Is the suspect cooperating? Have you all been able to speak to him?
The suspect was detained, brought here for questioning. I can't allude to the fact whether he cooperated with his interview or not, but he was ultimately transferred to Louisville Metro Corrections where he was arraigned. Yes, ma'am. Without
hurting the integrity of your case, Chief, can you talk to us? Is there any relationship that you've been able to come across between Mr. Bush and these two victims?
Not to our knowledge at this point. There's been no connection that we have established so far.
Any connection to the Kroger at all?
No, sir. Not that we've determined at this point.
So it's not like he was a previous employee or something?
No,
okay.
No.
Was there another armed citizen that was in the store that he encountered, but they didn't shoot at each other?
There's been conflicting reports of that. I don't have direct knowledge whether there was another armed citizen in the store or not.
The citizen who was involved in a gun exchange, how many shots did he fire?
I don't have that knowledge, sir.
Would there be any charges pending against him, possibly?
At this point, we don't see that or anticipate any criminal charges being levied against him for his actions.
Was there any type of precipitating event that led the accused man to go to that Kroger? Did he perhaps inform anyone of his plans, leave any type of letter?
We don't have any knowledge of that at this point. Again, we're still pursuing. This is an open investigation. We're still pursuing every avenue, and obviously, from an investigative standpoint, we try to determine the movements and the course of action that suspects have prior to any crime that's committed, so we can trace them back as far as we can get to determine things like that. But at this point, no.
As he was in custody, can you describe the suspect's demeanor or behavior when he was in custody?
The only thing that I can say is he was cooperative to a point.
Chief, what would you say to people in this community whose sense of safety has been really shaken by this event?
Well, as the mayor said, we here in Jeffersontown are a very tight community. We're all neighbors and friends. Certainly, this has rattled the foundation of our community based upon the fact that we are a small town with a big city atmosphere in that sense. And again, I can tell you that our police force is equipped both in training, mindset, and attitude to address any issue that is presented to them. Our citizens are great in the sense that they support us, and the level of policing, our ability to deliver that level of policing has not been impacted or altered by this incident.
Could you elaborate what you mean by he was cooperative to a point? Would he resist physically, or what do you mean by that?
No, sir, I can't elaborate on that at this point. But he did not. He did not pose any physical threat to us or our investigators after he was taken into custody.
Chief, just a quick question about the murder weapon. Any idea where the suspect got that gun, that was illegally obtained, and then tied to that, was he allowed to have a gun? I know he's had some court orders in the past where he was ordered not to have a weapon.
I know that type of information is out there. I don't know the answers to that at this point, and I'm not going to speculate on it. I know our partners at the ATF have been involved with regards to the firearm at this point.
There was another man in a vehicle who was stopped and detained. Can you tell us about him?
The initial information coming out of the scene, like I pointed out at the beginning of my statement here, was that we were receiving multiple calls, multiple sources and variety of information. Responding officers were given the description of a vehicle that potentially matched that of the suspect in which he was fleeing in. Officers did make a stop on a vehicle and took some people into temporary custody to determine their identity and if they were involved in it. Subsequently, they were determined to not be involved in the incident, at which point they were released.
So to clarify, we don't know specifically how he got the gun.
That's correct. We do not know at this point.
And regarding his interview, was that just your folks who were speaking to him last night, or were federal agents involved in that interview process as well?
Federal agencies were present. I don't know if they took an active part in the interview or not. Any other questions?
Well, thank everybody for coming today. Again, the most important thing is to keep these people in your prayers, both the people that lost a loved one, but also the people that were in the situation that they did not choose to be in. I want to again thank our J-Town Police, LMPD, FBI, ATF, all the people that were involved in this to take the situation to an end very quickly, within minutes, so that we are sitting here talking about a resolution for the future. J-Town is a community of all. We are not defined by one individual. So remember that we are safe. This is one individual that caused one situation, and this is a safe community. God bless you all. Thank you.
Are you planning another news conference at some point, maybe tomorrow?
Not yet, until we find more evidence is coming on.
Thank you all very much.
All right, you've been listening to a news conference updating us on the investigation into the shooting yesterday at the Kroger at the Stony Brook in J-Town. Chief Sam Rogers has been giving us details of what exactly happened. As you know, 2 people were killed in that shooting, and he says within 4 minutes of his officers arriving on the scene yesterday, they had the suspect in custody. He says there is surveillance video of the shooting, which clearly details what happened in and outside that building. And he says at this time, they have no connection between the victims and the suspect or the suspect and Kroger. Many details coming out of this news conference. We will have all of them for you tonight at 5 o'clock. Right now, I want to return you to The Young and the Restless.